Hey guys, CryptoDad here again, and today I'm going to show you how to encrypt a USB flash drive. So let's get going. So one of my subscribers brought this up, and it really gets me back to my roots because I started this channel really to talk about encryption for the everyday person and how it works and how to use it. And I've been doing a lot of videos on cryptocurrency, which has encryption and cryptography at its root. But encrypting a USB flash drive is a little more practical use of encryption, much closer to the user, something you can sink your teeth into, wrap your head around. So here's my user, Catastrophic. I'd like to thank him for bringing up this question on Thanksgiving. And here's the question: could you do a video on how to use encryption on my flash drive? Okay, he says he just needs some basic stuff. So I want to show you how to do this two ways, and then after the first way, we'll talk a little bit about how encryption works and what makes it secure, and the whole open source idea, which I find very interesting. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. So hang in there with me, guys. All right, so in our first use case, let's get rid of this. We're going to talk about just encrypting a regular old flash drive. And do I have this guy here? Yes. Okay. So I have a little flash drive here. It's got some data on there that I don't want anyone else to see. Okay. This is my Jedi mind trick for bringing me back into focus, right? We've got some data, and we want it to be hidden and only unlocked with a password. Okay, so a quick, practical, easy way to do that is, let's see what we got here. We're on Drive J. Okay, so I have some documents in here. I'm a member of the PTA at my daughter's school. And let's say that this is top secret stuff, financial stuff. We don't want anyone to know about it. And we've saved it on this flash drive. And I'll remind you, we don't want this anywhere else, right? So if I just copied this over from my hard drive onto the flash drive and encrypted the flash drive, it's not going to do me any good if someone stumbles on my computer. But let's not get too deep into it now. Let's just talk about encrypting this flash drive. So in Windows, it's pretty straightforward. So we just go over here to My PC, and we click on the drive, do a right click, and we've got Turn on BitLocker. Okay. Now BitLocker is the built-in encryption that is available in Windows, and you can use it to encrypt an entire drive. You can use it to encrypt your hard drive if you like. So the only thing we really have to do is enter a password. Twice, of course. And of course, you would want to make this a good password. I should do a whole video on what makes a good password. But in a nutshell, it should be long. It should have different characters. It should be hard to guess and easy for you to remember. Okay. So I'm not going to use my smart card. That's an additional feature that they can add to this. Okay, and we've got some recovery options here. Save to the Microsoft account is one way you could do it. And then you would, it's probably the easiest for you to get access to the recovery option, but maybe not so ultimately secure because someone else has your key, right? It's Microsoft, even though they claim to have it encrypted somewhere. So let's just do a print recovery key. That's kind of cool. I'm just going to print it up on my little printer over there. So it printed up the key, and I have another one here that's very similar from a different time. Ah, yes, here we are. So it prints out this. Let's go full screen here. It prints this out, and this is what you can use to recover the drive should you ever forget your password. And you would keep this in a safe place, and you might want to label it a little bit better, just so you know which flash drive this is related to. and that's a great way, and I've used that before for a hard drive. It does come in handy. Things don't always go as planned, right? So we're going to click, let's go back over here. We're going to click Next. And let's just encrypt the used drive space, because we're just going to assume that was a brand new flash drive that we put that small amount of data on. You might want to encrypt it, the entire drive, if there's been a lot of data on and off that. It's a more secure way of encrypting. So we're just going to encrypt the used space on the drive. We'll click Next. And I'm going to choose compatible mode, because I might want to take this to someone else's computer that's in the PTA that needs to see this financial data, and I don't know if they're using the latest version of Windows or not. They might be using Windows 7. You never know. So I'm going to go with compatible mode. For my own personal use, I might want to use new encryption mode, because I know that I'm using the latest version of Windows, and if I'm only keeping the data secure for myself, I might want to go with the new. So let's click Next here. We're going to say yes, encrypting the drive, and this is not going to take very long, and there we go. Now we've got the drive encrypted. Let's remove it and see what happens. So we took out J drive, and let's put it back in. And lo and behold, look what we have here. We've got a nice little flash drive with a little lock icon on it. And if we click on it and do a double click, it comes up with the BitLocker interface, and we just enter our little password here. Hit enter, unlock. And lo and behold, the drive unlocks, and you have access to your data and your finances and all that other good stuff. So that is the quick and dirty way to encrypt a USB flash drive. Now, it's pretty practical. It's pretty easy, almost overly simple, easy to do. Many people may not be aware of it, but it's a pretty straightforward process. Now, here's the catch, though. It would be good for the average person to keep the average person out of this flash drive. A hardened adversary, a forensic expert, maybe not so much, okay? It's not totally strong encryption, and it's not totally secure encryption. And let me explain why. BitLocker is made by Microsoft, and the code is proprietary. And what that means is they own the code. No one can really see the code, because when a programmer codes programs something, he does it in a programming language like Pascal or C++ or something a little more modern. But he writes the code, and then after the code is written and debugged and ready to go, it gets compiled. And what happens there is that human readable code gets translated into machine language or executable code, a language that only a machine can understand. Now, there are decompilers and tools that people can use on code like that, but in general, that code is not really open to review. Okay, and that's the important thing here. So I want to talk to you about open source software. Now, open source software is software that is collaborated on the web or in the world, between users, and it is open to review. Okay, and that sounds a little counterintuitive. So you say to me, CryptoDad, if anyone can look at the encryption code, then can't the bad guys look at that code and figure out how to break it? Doesn't that make it less secure when anyone can see the code? Well, that might be your first instinct, but really, if the code is open to review, then all of the developers can review the code to make sure that it's working properly, and anyone in the world can look at the code and find a bug. And it's much harder to put any kind of backdoor in there, because the community can review the code. Okay, that's what makes it stronger. Okay, so an encryption algorithm that can be reviewed and is open for all to see is going to be much stronger than a proprietary encryption algorithm such as BitLocker. And let's go a little step further. Let's look at the other side of it. So if no one can see the code, if only Microsoft can see the code, I have no way of knowing whether there's a bug in there that they missed or there's a backdoor built in there that they put in there on purpose. I have really no way of knowing that. Now, I have nothing against Microsoft. I love that company. They've been around for a while. I've been using their operating systems for a while. I really like Microsoft. You know, I'm not a Microsoft hater at all, but I need to be able to. I can't trust them, not because they're not trustworthy, but because it's not open for me to review or anyone else to review. Okay, and that's really the big difference between proprietary software and open source software. So now that I've babbled on a long time about that, I'm going to take you to my second solution, which is VeraCrypt, which is open source software. And I'm just going to run over to their website. I think I probably could have clicked that link as well. Now, you'll want to take this slow, okay? There's a lot to digest here on this website, and there's a lot to digest on their, in installing and using their software. I've done it. So I'm not going to go into all of the details, but this is not something that you want to do haphazard. Let's just put it like that. This is software for grown-ups. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to get VeraCrypt on my computer. Here we go. All right. So I want their downloads. Here we go. All right, so the first thing we want to do is get the installer on our hard drive. So I'm going to click the Windows link here. All righty. And we're going to save file and go over here to our software folder. We like to keep things organized. We'll click new folder. We'll call this VeraCrypt. I think I spelled that right. Gosh knows. All right. And I'm going to click save. Okay, and then up here in Firefox, you've got this down arrow. You can click on that in the little folder and take a look at the folder we just saved our VeraCrypt installer in. Now, we're going to want to verify this. And the way that we verify this is using the GNU PG software. If you don't have it installed on your computer, you should run over here to GPG for Windows and get this software installed on your computer. Okay, I'm going to be using this software to do this verification, and some people, I don't always make this clear that the software needs to be installed. So I'm going to do that. Alrighty, we've got the installer. We're going to need the PGP signature. If we click on it, it just pulls up this window here. This VeraCrypt setup 1.21.exe sig is our signature file. I'm going to save that. It's going to go in the exact same folder. Alrighty. And now we can take a look at our folder here, and we can see that we've got another file right next to the installer that pretty much has the same name with another extension. You can see it a little more clear if we hold down Shift and right click. Let's try that again. Shift, right click, open PowerShell window here. The default setup for Windows is to have the extensions hidden. So let's just take a look at what they look like in the command line. And you can see here, that's the installer with the exe extension, and this is the PGP signature right here. Okay, and that's how we verify. Now, before we can verify, we're going to need the developer's signing key, and they've got that up here. The PGP public key, that's how the public-private key encryption works. It's there's a public part and a private part. And if you have created a key, public-private key, you can distribute your public key to anyone. And then once someone has your public key, they can decrypt things that you have encrypted or signed. And we might talk a little bit more about that in another video, but let's just click this link here. And where is it going to take us? Oh, it's going to take us over here. So I could, this is, you know, a tag here, a beginning and an ending tag, and then a bunch of ciphertext here. I could just take all of this, right click and copy, and then paste it into a text file. But it's a little easier. My little trick is I just right click on the link and choose Save Link As, and I just put it back in that same folder. And you see it's got it named there the way that I want to name it. And there we go. And here's another nice thing. They've provided the fingerprint so we can verify that. So let's get that signature, that that public key, that developer signature, into our key ring. I'm going to launch GPA here. And GPA is a front-end interface for the GNU-PG software. I haven't created my own key yet, so I'll do that later. And let's see, I think I already have it in here too. I'm going to delete that so we can start from scratch here. So here's a list of the keys that I have for software that I've downloaded in the past. So we want to add this key to it, so I'm going to choose Import. And I'm going to navigate over to that key. So I'm going to hit my data drive. I'm going to go over here to, where is software? There it is down there. It must be on modified now. Let's do name. Let's do that. VeraCrypt right on the top. All right, so there's the public key.asc, and I'm going to click open. And there it is. One public key read, one public key imported. And that is the developer's public key for so that we can verify this download. Now you'll notice here this fingerprint matches the one up here on the website. So we've got a pretty good agreement, and we can trust this key. Now the ultimate trust would be to actually meet the developer in person and get their key in person, or from a friend of a friend, or from the circle of trust where someone signs their key that's been posted online, and you know that person, and you know, through a chain of signatures, I've come to trust this. That's a little beyond this discussion. We're just going to assume that we can trust this key. Alrighty, so now we need to dive into our verification step. And I ran into a little problem when I did this. I will show you what I mean. Here we go. All right, when I did my, let's do GPG -- version to just confirm that we have the software on our computer. If you don't get this, that means that it's not installed, and we've already talked about that. Where are we over here? Yeah, GPG for Windows needs to be on your computer for this to work. Okay. Now, in a normal situation, I would say GPG verify, and then I would take the name of the file. The name of the signature file comes first. I'm going to select and do a Control-C for copy. And then I'm just going to right-click here, and then I'll put a space and another right-click. And I want this file here, this first file, which is the installer. So I'm just going to erase that sig. That's just a quick way to get the command line written. Now, in the moment of truth here, we hit enter. And what is this? Can't open. VeraCrypt, no such file or directory. Well, I ran into this before when I tested this out. And the problem is that these file names have spaces in them. And the GPG software does not like spaces in the file names. You'll run into this quite a bit when you're doing rigorous computing. So what we need to do is just adjust the file name down. I'm gonna click and then leave, and then I'll just scrunch that guy, and in here I'm gonna put the underscore. All right, And then I'll do the same thing with the installer file. Doesn't affect the what's in the file when you change the name, really. Okay. And I'm going to put an underscore there too. And it's not imperative that they're both exactly the same file name. It helps, but I think GPG will still work without it. Okay, so now we've got the two files that we want, and let's do a dir, and we can see now that we've got a good, nice, compatible. Do a Control-C here, and I'm going to paste that in there. Oops, I need to put the command in there first, guys. We're doing gpg -- verify, and then I can right-click, put a space, right-click again, and erase that extension. And then we'll hit enter. And there we go. That's what we're looking for, guys. We're looking for that good signature from the VeraCrypt team. And I know that's a little bit involved, this whole verification. I watch a lot of help videos where they just click on the installer and download it and run it. That's not what we're about here. We're practicing rigorous computing, and we want to run encryption on a flash drive, and we want it to be totally secure. So we want to be able to trust the software, and we know it's open source, but when we go to download it, we could be on a faux page. We could be on an adversary's page who has cloned the page and is tricking us into downloading malware. So this is how we verify that we are getting the file, the installer, that the developer intended us to get. The signature tells us that he is who he says he is, and the verification step shows us that the installer has been downloaded or moved from their server to my computer without any alteration in transit or corruption in transit. Things like that happen. So now, and I'll also point out this warning here. You'll see that might concern you, and that is about the issue that we spoke of earlier, that we don't know that developer key belongs to the developer for sure, because we haven't met the developer in person or gone through a circle of trust. But we did check the fingerprints, and they matched, and that's pretty darn good. Okay, so we're just going to stick with that. So the warning is not that important to us. We're just going to accept this good signature and accept the fact that the installer is the good installer. So let's run the installer. I hope I didn't go too long with all of this, but hey. Okay, we're just going to accept. Let me get all of this other stuff out of the way. Okay. Well, we're done with our verification step. We're going to run the install. I'll just let it go into the default location. Now there's a lot of verbiage in this process here. I'm not going to go through all of it. Donating, I would encourage you to donate to any open source software developers. It's a great cause. We're going to click finish here. Of course, they're going to recommend that we read the manual, and so do I. Okay, there it is. And this is the first thing that we're going to do is pretty straightforward. This create volume, so I'm not going to take you through all that. So here's our VeraCrypt. We're just going to open that up, and we want to create a volume. So we'll click this, and we're going to we're not going to do the file container. We're going to encrypt a non-system partition drive. Okay, and that just means the flash drive. And where is this little bugger? I think this is it. No. Oh. I think I've put it in the wrong sleeve here. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the next step. Sorry about that, gang. Yes. Okay, we're just going to do a standard VeraCrypt volume. like I said, there's a lot of options here, and we're going to select the device. So I have this little flash drive, and I'm going to put it in my computer over here. Now there's a couple of ways to do this. Let me get that J drive. Well, I'll just leave the J drive in there. You know, this is the one we did before. This is a new one, the K, and it's empty. Okay. Now there's a couple of ways to do encryption. There's in-place encryption, which would mean that there's already data on the drive that we're encrypting, and that takes a bit longer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to encrypt the drive, and then after it's unlocked, I can copy some data on there, and that's going to make for a little bit of a faster process. Okay, so where are we here? Oh yeah, we're going to select the device. We're going to look at J. And you have to be careful that you get the right drive here. I think it needs to be the device partition. Yeah, let's get this one below here. We'll click OK. All right, we've got our drive selected. I'm not going to read all of this right now. And we'll just click Next. So it's going to encrypt the volume and format it at the same time. And that's the option that I'm going to do today for simplicity's sake and for speed's sake. The other one here, encrypt in place, would mean that there's already data on the drive. So we don't want to destroy the data if it's our secret data. In this case, we've got a blank flash drive. We're just going to click Next. Okay, there's choices of different algorithms. I won't go into that either. AES is a perfectly good algorithm. And we've got these different hash algorithms that we can go with as well. This is all stuff for later videos. I'm just doing a practical how-to here today. We'll click Next. And Next. Yeah, it's a 8 gigabyte flash drive. All right, now let's put our password on there. Okay, I'm not going to use a key file or any of this other stuff right now. We're just going to do a straightforward. Okay, and then it's telling me the password's a little short, which, yeah, I get it. This is just a demonstration video. In this case, no. If you're putting movies and things on there or very large graphic files, yes, you might be storing larger than 4 gigabyte. But in my case, no, I'm not. I'm not really sure why they're asking that. It probably makes a difference. So here we go. I'm gonna just move my mouse around to introduce some randomness into this process. So if I go off, yeah, if I go off, it's better to just sort of leave the mouse within this window as we're doing all this. It's doing there we go. Seems to be coming along quite nicely. All right, now that we've finished all of that, we can do a format. Yes. Okay, yes. Yeah, it's a blank file. So, or I mean, it was a blank flash drive, so we don't have to worry about any of the data that was on there or is on there. Let's see here. It looks like it's going to take 25, 26 minutes. It's going to take a little while. And it would take even longer if there was data on the flash drive. So I'm going to let that zip through. Okay guys, so the encryption has finished on our little flash drive here. So I'm just going to click OK. And the volume was successfully created. And let's check it out. Alright, so it wants me to do this whole thing again. Alright, so we'll do this, auto mount drives. Alright, and here's the password. So let's see here. Actually, let's try it this way. let's take a look at what we got here. I'm gonna simplify things a little bit by taking some of these out. Okay. So, not that my machine isn't already complicated enough. These are all internal drives and one external backup. But let's connect this new VeraCrypt one that we installed. Now it is telling us it needs to be formatted. I'm not going to do that because Windows doesn't really recognize it. So we're going to do VeraCrypt, and we're going to do auto mount devices. And it wants the password. Okay. Hey, it did it. All right. Okay, so here's the drive here. It mounted up as J, and now that it shows up in VeraCrypt, it shows up here as drive J, as a 8 GB drive. Isn't that cool? Okay, so then we can move stuff onto this drive that we might want to keep secret. I don't know if I have anything. Let's just say with this purchase receipt. Yeah, let's do that. Not even sure what that's for. Okay, so now we have some data on this drive. Now, if I wanted it to be super ultra secret, I would delete it from my computer as well, so that someone wouldn't stumble on it on my computer. We only want one copy of it if we're gonna keep it secret, right, on the flash disk. Or if you were creating the document on the fly, say in Word or Excel, you would only save it to this, and then clear your caches and all that good stuff. And so that's it. So now we have a flash drive that is encrypted with a open source encryption software. So it's highly secure, a little tricky to work with, but all in all, it's a good system. All right, for those of you who are security conscious out there. Okay, so that's it, gang. A little long-winded, but I wanted to answer that question as thoroughly as I possibly could. How do I encrypt a USB flash drive? And so we covered a lot. We skipped over a lot of things that we could have talked about involving encryption and the VeraCrypt software, but I wanted to make it as practical as possible so that you could just get from A to B and know how to set up and encrypt a USB flash drive. So once again, thank you, Catastrophic, for the question. Thanks to all of my viewers and subscribers. I love your questions and your comments. You know, they give me ideas for new videos and they keep me sharp. So keep them coming, please. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to subscribe to my channel, I would appreciate it. And you'll get alerted when new videos get posted. So once again, thanks for joining me, and good night.